It is Wednesday the 5th of May 2021 and you find me out in the garage vinyl archives just for a change. Kids, ask your dad or a funky uncle all about vinyl, the way we used to do it back in the day. Just thought it'd make a bit of a change to doing the usual videos in the office, just to come out here and see what lurks around. I've pulled a few random bits out of the shelves here. I mean, it's totally spontaneous. Stevie Wonder, Hotter Than July, classic album there. Got a couple of reggae albums. 200% Dynamite, Rocksteady and Ska classics on that. We've got a Greensleeves sampler. Anyone that knows about reggae music knows all about the Greensleeves label. Used to play all that stuff in the clubs when I was out there making a living every weekend, when that used to be my life before all of this. Got a couple of 12-inch singles of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes, from summer 1984. I remember collecting all the formats of this record when it was out. Absolutely loved it. It's a classic. Staying with the 80s, couple of U2 albums. Never mind, eh? What else? More U2. Why have I got so much U2? Research. And the soundtrack to 2001 A Space Odyssey. So, some classic sounds there. I mean, it's nothing on what Carl Cox has got in his garage archives. If anyone's ever seen the stash that guy's got, it's only a small portion of it. But, every track's a memory, every track's a story, and I wonder if I'll ever get back to playing any of this stuff out again. We can live in hope, eh? Alright, so down to regular, proper business, and I can see that one side of my face is illuminated and the other isn't. It doesn't mean I'm Illuminati, okay? Don't get it twisted. There was a phrase that I used to finish many of my public talks with a few years ago, before any of this scamdemic nonsense began, and I was still talking about natural law and alignment with right action as the solution to all the problems that humanity faces. If only there were widespread comprehension of the dynamics of universal spiritual natural law and consequentialism that's in place everywhere in the universe, in creation. If only this stuff were taught in schools and people lived their lives according to these codes, then humanity would have a much better deal, to say the very least. And to reinforce this point, I used to finish my presentations with the phrase, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? And that notion, I feel, applies now more than ever before. And another favourite phrase I used to have was that one person can't change the world, but they can be an essential part in the process that does. And this brings to mind the scenario that must surely be in place all over the world and has been for the past year plus, where so many people are sitting around feeling disempowered, feeling hopeless, feeling like they can't make any sort of a positive contribution to the betterment of our shared experiences. Millions of people all over the world are probably sitting there thinking, what difference can I make? I'm just one person. Well, just imagine that scenario magnified by several 100 million. So instead of one person now sat in their room at home thinking, what can I do? I'm just one person. Now you've got 500 million people sitting around thinking, what can we do? We're just 500 million people. Immediately you can see a bit of a shift in the dynamic here. And I know that people do feel this way because they email me all the time to say, I don't know what my contribution can be. I don't know what difference I can make. And the truth is that everyone can make a difference. And as I've reinforced many times through my videos, I know that I've personally woken up probably tens of thousands of people, maybe even hundreds of thousands. The reason I know this is because people tell me. And you can bet, for every person that takes the time and the trouble and the energy to write, to tell me that my output has inspired them and has changed their outlook and their behaviours and their thoughts and their emotions, there are going to be probably 10 other people that just haven't taken that time and trouble to write for whatever reason. So it's not the case that the only people that have woken up are the people that write to me. There are going to be many, many more. And I only mention this to illustrate what one person can achieve. And my mind goes back to when I started out on this truth lark. about 11 years ago now, in all sincerity, in 2010. And I started putting out work of the nature that I'm doing now. So the Good Vibrations podcast is just coming up to its 10th anniversary. So towards the end of this year, I'm going to be on 200 episodes and 10 years of output. So that's some pretty solid, consistent work I've been putting out there. And through that whole process, or I should say that whole process only got started because I myself was inspired by other people. Primarily, it was David Icke. And I don't need this to turn into a debate over whether David Icke is controlled opposition or is to be trusted or is the real deal. That's not what this conversation is about. The point to make here is that the output of David Icke pretty much single-handedly inspired me to get on the path to what I'm doing now. So, in other words, if Icke's work had not inspired and given me a kick up the arse, I might not be doing what I'm doing now, and that would mean that potentially hundreds of thousands of people around the world may not know what they know, may not be on the path that they're on, because they wouldn't have been inspired by me. It kind of brings to mind the narrative to the movie It's a Wonderful Life, which is on TV every Christmas, with Jimmy Stewart from 1946. And in that movie, the central character, James Stewart, decides that he's had enough of life. One sympathises. And, he wants to jump off a bridge and end it all because he feels he can't contribute anything to the world anymore. And my memory of the film is a little bit hazy, but I do recall there's an angel that appears to him, and he gives him visions of what the world would be like if he had never been born and if he had never made his personal contribution to things. And you see the world from the perspective of other characters whose lives his has touched. And it just reinforces how much value one person's influence can have over so many others. So, once again, if I had not been set on this path by those that inspired me, primarily David Icke, I would not have had the reach to the many, many other people that I have. And I'm just one person, I'm just a regular dude. There's nothing special about me. I'm just someone who decided to put my time and my efforts and my energies and utilize the skill sets and the knowledge that I'd built up to put it to work, to try and benefit humanity, to try and, uplift human consciousness, and to try and make this world a bit of a better place, I like to think that if I left this place tomorrow, it's in a slightly better condition than it would have been if I'd never come into it in the first place. So my point is not to boost my ego in any way. That's not what this conversation is about. I'm pointing out that if I can do this, then anyone can. And I wonder about the vast amount of people that I've personally inspired and how many others they've, in their own way, been able to go on and inspire. The exponential snowball effect of all of that has got to be absolutely immense, and that's what's got to continue. And that takes us back to the phrase, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? And one person cannot change the world. We can't do it by ourselves. We know this. But together, we can do this. Together, we've got this. The song from Darren Nesbitt that they're singing at all the UK protests now? It's been adopted as the kind of anthem, We Are the 99%. And the hook line goes, we are the 90, together we are mighty, we are the 99%. We can achieve incredible things if we come together and pool our resources. We don't have all the answers individually, but when we come together as a collective and pool our knowledge and get our heads together to resolve the problem, incredible things can emerge from that. That's what the enemy does, after all. They don't seem to have any problem uniting on the same page towards a common goal. We've got to take a leaf out of their book if we're to beat what we're facing. So no one method can achieve this either. So the protests alone won't do it. Although they are making great progress now. More of that as we progress in this video. The protest event in London of a couple of weekends ago was absolutely awesome. I was hugely inspired by it. It was great to be a part of things on that day. Estimates vary as to how many people were on the streets of London, but it was probably at least 750,000. Some people think it was closer to 1 million. This is on the scale of what we saw in Berlin last year. Absolutely amazing. But the protests alone won't do it. The information campaigns alone won't do it. They play a very major role, and I've got some more stashes of my leaflet, my resource leaflet, available to send out to people as well. I'll recap on that at the end. Many other organizations, many other individuals are now sending out letters, leaflets, flyers, stickers, posters to get the message out about the tyranny that we're facing and the New World Order and the Great Reset and the climate change scam that's just around the corner. Great stuff, great efforts from everyone involved, but that alone won't do it. There's legal, lawful action taking place. There's Michael O'Byrne-Sear's case, the private criminal prosecutions against Valance, Whitty, Hancock, Ferguson. There's Rainer Fulmich of the Corona Investigative Committee and the team of lawyers that he's built up to take the various governments of the world to task for their tyranny and their fraud and their crimes against humanity. And there's also the Doctors for COVID Ethics taking legal action against the European Medical Agency. That's happening now as well. Great stuff, but that alone won't do it. And then we have people power and mass non-compliance. Just imagine if everyone refused to wear masks, refused to shut down their businesses, refused to not have family members round their house when they're told they can't do it, just refused to cooperate with any of this madness. What a difference in the play out we would see then. So none of these things alone can do it, but in combination they can. Imagine a combination of all those efforts from a vast number of people all over the world, all united on the same page, getting their heads together and all committed towards a common goal. Incredible things can be achieved. And here are a couple of reasons why just that needs to continue. So this is from an email recently sent out by David Clues of the No More Lockdowns campaign. He was my guest on a recent episode of Good Vibrations. The message that he sent out recently reads, "On Saturday night, we broke the story that the government has signed a £320 million media ad buy contract until March 2022 for COVID-19 advertising. The story has now gone viral, but for me this emphasises two absolutely crucial things. Firstly, it shows that they intend to keep this going until at least March 2022, possibly and the rest. And as we heard from the weekend, Dominic Raab hinted that face masks and such will remain. Secondly, it shows that we no longer have an impartial media in this country, like there was ever any doubt about that. Without state-funded advertising, nearly the entire mainstream media would go bust. Therefore, they are merely propaganda outlets. This should concern anyone who believes in a free and fair press. This is a twofold battle and one that we are playing a crucial role in. Through UNN, which is David Clues' organisation, we can continue to publish articles and broadcast our shows to inform people, while the No More Lockdowns.uk campaign empowers grassroots action against this tyranny. And another reason why the action that I've just described needs to be kept up and stepped up all the more comes from Freedom Education UK, who sent me a message stating they are coming for the children. We need to write a letter to every senior school in the country to stop them administering the COVID vaccine in September, as leaked government reports say they're going to try and do. They will vaccinate children 12 and over, well, they can bloody try, meaning they will invoke Gillick competency and will not require parental consent. We'll see about that. Or even parental knowledge, and will bully children into it. Well, they won't, but you see the point. Therefore, it's vital we get a comprehensive document to every school in the country outlining why they should not do this, including to schools which don't have any vaccine-hesitant parents, as children cannot be sacrificed to this diabolical agenda just because their parents are poorly informed. Miri Ann, a prominent legally trained activist, will be putting together a letter, and we really need every parent on here to email it to all the schools in their area. As well as this, Freedom Education UK will be actively involved in producing and distributing leaflets to hand out at school gates and possibly arranging protests outside schools where there's enough support. So I put further links to the No More Lockdowns and the Freedom Education UK campaigns in the show notes below. And these are two platforms on which people really need to get engaged and push back. And they serve as a reminder that we now have a small window of opportunity to turn this situation around. And I would define it as this summer 2021. This is our possibly last opportunity to win back our power, take back our freedoms, our rights, and put down this tyranny once and for all. And to get everybody else on board with it, to reach that tipping point in public consciousness. We all know that most normies like to do what's fashionable, right? What's trendy, what's in vogue, what everyone else is doing, what's the done thing, the accepted thing. So we need to get to a point where it's the done thing, it's fashionable to question what the government has to tell us, to call out the mainstream media as liars and frauds, to question the science that we're being given from these medical establishments that are telling us about the virus and the V word and all of this. It needs to become fashionable to not believe a goddamn word that we're told from any of these establishment sources, and to do our own research and to use the internet to our advantage, to be discerning, to weed out all the crap, all the misinformation, all the disinformation that's on there, and instead focus on the positive, empowering and accurate information that we can get access to. That's got to become the done thing. We've got to reach that tipping point, and we've got to do it this summer. So, our Stasi Gulag overlords have decreed that we can have a small amount of freedom now. They're slowly starting to open things back up. They're still saying that from the 21st of June, the summer solstice, we're going to get most of our freedoms back, but they are hinting that the face masks and the distancing might remain. But once we're able to get out there freely and travel freely again, it is possibly the only opportunity that we collectively are going to have in this land and so many others to turn this situation around. Because we've just seen there from the advertising campaign that they've extended to March 2022, they're clearly planning to drop more tyranny on us in the autumn and the winter, when cold and flu season starts again and old people start dying from pneumonia and other breathing difficulties, that kind of situation. They are going to be trying to put us into lockdown again, and they're going to be trying to condition people to accept that every winter this is just the way it's going to be. So it's this summer or never. It's this opportunity, or we might not get another one to do this. The prison gates are going to be fully slammed shut. At the moment, they're still slightly ajar. We've still just got the opportunity to jam a foot in that door and prevent it from slamming closed on us. But after this summer, I don't feel we're going to have that opportunity anymore. So, are we up to the job? We have to be. It's down to us, no one else, and now is the time, no other time. Let's get it done. Summer 2021. Let's turn this situation around for good. Tyrants don't stop when you ask them nicely to stop. They need to be forced to stop. Alright, so time to take a dip into the mailbag and see what correspondence has come in since the last video. And I've had many messages about the great protest rally in London on the 24th of April. It was an awesome event, as I've mentioned, and the weather smiled on us as well. It's a beautiful sunny day, very much in contrast to what we've got at the moment. It's a bit of a piss take because we're told that until the 17th of May, if we want to go to a pub or a restaurant, we have to sit outside. And of course, it's been pissing it down with rain and it's been cold as the Arctic. And you know what's going to happen on the 17th of May when you can go indoors again? We're going to have a heat wave, right? Anyway, this person from America writes to say, so great, proud of you guys, wish we had anything close here to what you have over there. I wish to add a point of critique though. We're way beyond the pale already of simply marching around and calling for our rights to be restored to us and demanding our freedoms and liberties be fully honoured and respected again. Government aren't listening, no one is going to respond, there's no one among the elite slime despots who rule over us with impunity by fiat who are going to care about our suffering under the severe totalitarian abuse and horrendously obscene mistreatment during this last year and a bit. I strongly urge a different tenor to all our protest endeavours. We should be openly calling upon all governments worldwide to resign and calling also for justice to be meted out to the elite slime, both corporate and government heads. We want them all to be arrested and tried for high treason and sedition as well as for crimes against humanity. This is the only path for us to push back against our tormentors. This is the only way to exact revenge for what they've done to us, but both psychologically and physically. This is the only way a movement forceful enough can be brought to bear in time to make a difference, says this person. Another message I've had in response to the last London rally goes like this. I was watching the live streaming of the London March. Gutted I couldn't get down there. The police coming in on the crowd really staged with officers drawing truncheons and overacting with hats just falling off everywhere. It looked like an EastEnders set. It did not look authentic, and the 3 gashed officers, the female officer being taken away with a cut to her face, just looked unrealistic. One agitator in the crowd shoved an officer's shoulder, which looked strange and unlikely a regular member of the public would do that. There's a video on Telegram which seems to concur with that when the officer is thrown his hat back by someone in the crowd who knew exactly which officer the hat belonged to. So I think it's the usual stage nonsense for the tabloids. And I was there at this point in Hyde Park Speaker's Corner. Once the march had finished, a lot of people were just congregating in that area of the park and socialising, getting together, sitting on the grass with some food, with some beers, just chilling out and being natural, behaving like humans do, you know? And there was a point where a bunch of officers just linked arms, standard training procedure, and went wading into this peaceful crowd who were just minding their own business and doing no harm to anyone, and started unleashing the violence. And I did see one officer with what appeared to be blood streaming down his face, but I don't know if that was fake blood or not. We know that they use agent provocateurs, agitators. We know that they've used fake blood before in many of these false flag terror events. This could well have been staged just for the media. I feel that whole episode was just so that they could get something on the evening news to portray all the protesters as violent thugs, because the rest of the footage they would have got from the day would have shown possibly 750,000 people peacefully protesting their rights and freedoms on the streets of London. And we can't have that going out on the BBC Evening News for all the normies to see, can we? Last message regarding the protest here. This person writes, "Was a massive pleasure to see your short video from London. Strange times we're living in. A year ago, I'd never have thought the UK could be taken to where it is, that so many people would permit it to being led there. That said, at that time, I'd have also said I was a hard data science kind of guy, yet a year later, look at life far more spiritually." I think that's a process that's happened to many of us. It's caused us to do a lot of soul searching and become much more inwardly reflective. I'm sure many people would say that they're more spiritually inclined now through the suffering that we've all been through. I guess you need a bit of suffering in your life. If everything's cozy and plain sailing, you don't get to learn the lessons, you don't get to grow and evolve, you don't get that full holistic human experience. Having said that, life isn't supposed to be all suffering, of course. There is supposed to be some fun, some joy. It's not all supposed to be removed. It's supposed to be a complete holistic process, as I say. This person finishes off, "The silver lining of this period is seeing how many people are now awake, standing together and rejecting in droves the digital prison we're being enticed or driven into." And the final message I'll read out from a good friend of mine. I don't use names on this, but this dude has written to me before. He'll know who he is. "We are perhaps far more intuitive." Oh, this is to do with, by the way, The question of why certain among us, awake and aware types, are able to see all the lies and all the deceptions and all the mind control psyops that are being played on us, but the majority don't seem to be able to. And no matter what we do to try and wake them up, no matter what information we place in front of them, no matter how we invite and try to encourage them to research for themselves, many people just will not go there. Why is this? Is this a spiritual dynamic as well? Are we bashing our heads against the wall trying to get through to these people? Will they never wake up? Is it written in the stars that they're never going to wake up in this lifetime? This message addresses that question. We are perhaps far more intuitive than those around us, the truth resonating in the very nature of our being. Also, we simply switch everything that we receive from the mainstream media, knowing it's all a charade, knowing that nothing is as we're being told or as it seems. Just like MK Ultra, many mind control victims, the programming broke down in us and is still breaking down, which perhaps explains the emotional roller coaster we're all on, the highs and the lows, and why most NPCs, non-player characters, think we're mad. Plus, the pain we have felt at not being taken seriously has made us question ourselves again. Not easy. What with the programming so deep, I'm now thinking that it's actually impossible to wake someone up. Entrenched beliefs are so ingrained that they will have to be told or shown by a credible source that they've been led up the garden path. I'd be inclined to agree with that, and I've stated to a few people that, in my view, nothing short than the emergency broadcast system that we've heard about as part of the so-called plan, nothing short of that is going to do it. Nothing short of people being in the middle of watching EastEnders or Strictly Come Dancing, and the broadcast goes off, and you get a bit of white noise, and then an emergency broadcast system kicks in on all channels. There's no getting away from it. There's nothing else to watch, and you have cold, harsh truth bombs dropped on you from a credible source that cannot be denied or avoided. Nothing short of that is going to do it with the vast majority of people. Just my view. Getting back to the message, we can point out the absurdity of what is happening and the depth of the problem, but still most people cannot go there. So it seems to me that most people would rather take the lies at face value rather than have their beloved belief systems questioned and subsequently thrashed when they find out the real truth. So would rather avoid discussing anything which does not fit their reality tunnel. Words being spells which can hold us entranced. So much so that when certain words are used, they automatically create unease in the programming, thus disabling the ability to think critically about anything. Let's not go there. That can't possibly be true. Surely the government wouldn't do that to us. If they did, the BBC would tell us. And finally, how could they pull off such a massive hoax? They're all phrases we've heard, right? This brings forth the impossibility of the current scam of being of completely human origin. Interesting thought. The sheer size and immensity of the scam and how easily the whole thing has been executed is beyond our current understanding of how the universe works. And I've kind of drawn on this idea in the book that I'm currently writing, Musical Truth Volume 3, which I'm beavering away at with a view to getting it finished by the end of the year. There are so many synchromistic connections and overlaps between different aspects of what I've been writing about, the music industry and certain things that go on within it, that it really does lead you to conclude that it goes way beyond the realms of human planning. It's just not possible for flesh and blood individuals to sit around a table devising all this stuff and coming up with a plan for all these incredible connections and links. It really feels as if paranormal forces within creation are causing all these things to happen. It's energy attracting like energy and bringing about things into physical manifestation. I think we get that far more in our lives than we would realise. That's all the messages then. Just a few announcements to finish off with. I've just had a new batch of these very popular t-shirts, the I Do Not Consent t-shirts. I'm modelling one here. So these are my own as opposed to other people's that send them in to me. And here's the new batch, fresh back from the printers. I've got them in all sizes, small, medium, large and XL. And in the text below, I'll give the chest sizes of each of these so people can know which one will fit them. So these are ideal conversation starters. You know, somebody could well come up to you and say, what is it you don't consent to? And your answer could be, well, what have you got? And they're ideal for all these protests and rallies that are going to be taking place in the summer months. So if anyone wants to grab a t-shirt for themselves, just drop me an email to the usual address, which is in the show notes below. And you can pay by PayPal or bank transfer. Within the UK, they're £10 all in. So I'm just saying, send me a tenner and you get the t-shirt plus the P&P, the postage. If you're from anywhere other than the UK, just drop me an email and we can work out what the postage costs will be from that. As I mentioned earlier on, I've got a new batch back from the printer of the leaflets, the resource leaflet, double-sided A4 that I put together just the other week. These contain QR codes. So if you're handing these leaflets to people in the street and they've got their smartphone with them, they can scan the code and go directly to the links that are mentioned on the sheet. And these are specifically to do with the V-word agenda, which is obviously very urgent business now. It's where this whole scamdemic was always headed, to coerce people into taking the V. And so if anyone wants to get a batch of these leaflets to get out to normies pretty damned pronto to get the message out there that this is what the agenda is, these aren't really V's in their true right anyway, as many medical professionals are now attesting to, then drop me an email again and I can get a batch sent out to you. This is UK only, please. So I've paid to have the leaflets done, no problem with that. But if people can just contribute £4 for the postage and packaging for me to send the leaflets out to them and pay that into my PayPal, that at least ensures I'm not making a loss on the postage as well as the printing. There is an audiobook version of Musical Truth Volume 1, which is now available. I had hoped it would be available on Audible, which is a division of Amazon that deals with audiobooks. It's not quite ready for that. There's a couple of things that need to be amended on it, but I do have downloads of the audiobook myself available to send out if people want to get one off me directly. So this is me narrating the whole of Musical Truth Volume 1. It's 180,000 words and it equates to 17 and a half hours of audio. So if you're not sick of my voice by that point, I don't know what would ever do it. So if anyone wants to get themselves an audiobook version of Musical Truth 1, I know a lot of people like to listen to books as opposed to reading them because they quite simply don't get the time to sit down and turn the pages of a paper book. I'm like that myself. Then Musical Truth Volume 1 is available. Again, as with all things, just drop me an email and we can arrange that. It's priced at £12 for the download. I do also have an audiobook version of The Cause and the Cure, which is my allegorical novel. I'm reading that, so that one's available as well. Musical Truth Volume 2 has not been voiced yet. I'll get round to it one day in the next decade or so. And Musical Truth 3 will come in an audiobook version as well, just as soon as I get the time to record it all. Just another quick mention for my Truth Taxi service that I mentioned the other week. So just to recap, prior to the scamdemic, I worked as a private hire driver, and it was primarily taking business folk to and from airports. That job went at the start of the scam because people stopped travelling. But just recently, I've tried to revive that aspect of my activities to a small extent by offering a service to anyone that needs a car journey within the UK from one point to another. And these would be journeys of a reasonable length, 1, 2, 3 or more hours. I'm not talking about a quick nip from the bank to the post office. You know, this would be a significant journey if people need to get from one part of the country to another. And if they want a car service where there'll be no requirement for masks, none of the usual COVID bullshit, and if you want hopefully a decent conversation into the bargain to help the time go a bit quicker, then drop me an email and let me know where you want to go from and to, and we can see if we can arrange something there. It's something I enjoy doing. I do like driving. I miss the job. I like to get out and about, and this seems to me to be an ideal way of some mutual benefits for all concerned. So that's the Truth Taxi service if anyone requires taking from point A to point B, wherever that may be. The only other thing to mention is a couple of shows I've appeared on recently. The Rise Above podcast, hosted by MC Double L and the crew. I was down there at their studios just the other week in Bournemouth, and we had a great Friday evening session where I dropped a conscious music DJ set, and we had a great chat about my musical truth music industry research. So that's been available on the YouTube channel for a while. It's still there now. I also appeared on the Hidden Gateway podcast just recently with host Jeston, and we had another great chat about some of my research into the darker side of the music industry. There's a few bits and pieces there that will be appearing in the upcoming Musical Truth Volume 3. So that one's available now to listen to as well. So that's it for now. As I understand it, there are two big protest marches coming up in London on the 15th and the 29th of May. So the 15th is a day of worldwide protests. Many other towns and cities are going to be staging events on that date. Then on the 29th, that one, as I comprehend it, is specific to London. So I'm planning to be in attendance at the next one on the 15th. Hopefully the weather will hold out for us again. I know there are events happening at many other cities around the UK as well. There was a big one in Edinburgh on the 1st of May. Big shout out to everyone that attended that. Hope that went really well. And there is still value to these events. They're growing in numbers, as we've seen. Who would ever have believed this time last year that we'd get 750,000 to 1 million people out on the streets of London? I do remember attending one of the very first protest events in May 2020, 1 year ago, in Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner. And it was pathetic. There were about 40 people, if that. Look at where we're at now. Look at how much we've been pushed and prodded, and we've started to react. And many people were handing out leaflets and slapping stickers all over street furniture around London, reinforcing important messages. And people have said they got into conversations with normies that were coming out of shops in Oxford Street. And there are still people that haven't yet twigged that this whole thing is a massive scam. Incredible, I know. They're a bit slow on the uptake, but there are still people that can be turned. There are some that will never be, as we discussed earlier, but there were people that were taking an interest in the leaflets that people were handing out, and they were having little conversations with them, and they were saying, yeah, I thought there was something wrong with all this. So they're getting there in the end. There are still people that can be turned. The tide still can be turned, and in the spirit of the title of this video, if not this summer, then when? It has to be now, and it has to be us that do it. I'm going to continue having a bit of a root around in the man cave, I think, and see what I can find in that vinyl. So I'll catch you next time.